that so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Hawaii ponoi, nanai komoi, kalani ali'i ke ali'i, makualani e, kamehameha e, na kawae pale me ka ihe, makualani e, kamehameha e, na kawae pale me ka ihe.
Aloha, and welcome to For Love of Country, 75 years of hope and heroes, a very special program supporting Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, a unique museum located in the hangars, in the very hangars that survived the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor. Unlike any other aviation museum in our country, our location on America's World War II battlefield brings the devastation of war and our resilience as a nation into full focus. It is here that millions of people from around the world have traveled prior to the impact of COVID-19 to remember and honor the spirit and sacrifice of our greatest generation. Their legacy of sacrifice and patriotism helps us now as we work together to defeat an invisible enemy that threatens us all. This year, 2020, we commemorated the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. Tonight, we remember those whose lives and sacrifice ushered in the commitment to global peace and friendship that followed at the end of this global conflict. It is by remembering and honoring the past that we best prepare for our future. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce Alyssa Lines, Executive Director of the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum.
Aloha. Over the next hour, we hope that the stories, entertainment, and tributes that we share will trigger personal memories and engage you emotionally in not only remembering the tragedy of Pearl Harbor, but also the cultural significance of Hawaii and the resilience of our nation. Together, we forged a path towards peace. It is that tenacity and unity of spirit that will help us now. Since 2006, the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, with the help of many, has undertaken the ongoing and often daunting work of restoring the grounds, the hangars, and the iconic Ford Island Control Tower, protecting our history so that we might educate and inspire all who visit. It is a place like no other. It has been nearly 8 decades since that devastating day in history that changed our nation and our world. Millions of people travel to this site each year to remember and honor their loved ones who at a time of desperation joined a global struggle to protect our freedom. Young men and women around the country stepped forward with conviction, when news of the December 7, 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor reached their communities. Their resilience and can-do attitude changed the world. This is our greatest gift. It is our collective responsibility to pass on these traits that define American culture to this day, to teach our young people to lead with conscience, and to always remember, as Theodore Roosevelt said, this country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in.
Good afternoon. My name is Treat Williams. I'm an actor and a pilot, and I've been flying airplanes and helicopters for over 50 years. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Aviation Museum at Pearl Harbor. And to do that, I want to show you a couple airplanes that the pilots trained in World War II. This is my Piper Cub. This was the first airplane that the pilots trained in. I've been flying this airplane for about 15 years. It was built in 1941 and it was the primary trainer, the first airplane that the World War II pilots got into. And in this airplane they learned basic flying skills, takeoffs, landings, straight and level, and possibly a little bit of aerobatics. After the Cub, what they did was they transitioned to another trainer called the AT-6 Texan. Now, I owned and flew this airplane for about 16 years. This particular model is a D model. I owned a G model, but they're all fantastic ships. I gotta tell you, I really loved flying this airplane, and for more than just the flying of it. Every time I got into this cockpit of the airplane and held that stick in my hands, I knew that thousands and thousands of 18-year-old young men also flew this airplane and learned the skills for combat in this aircraft and moved into the much more sophisticated airplanes like the P-51 afterwards. It's also a great honor that I owned and flew this airplane. My uncle Treat, who I'm named after, was in the Army Air Corps, and he was a gunner on a Liberator and lost his life in Venosa, Italy at the age of 19 during a join-up. So I'm very honored to carry his name and carry the family tradition. These airplanes are so important to all of us because of all the men and women who flew them during the war and trained to fly the fighters and then went off and sometimes gave their lives for us and for generations beyond. They were in fact the greatest generation. And I'd like to say that it's of great import that we maintain these airplanes, particularly in Pearl Harbor, at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, because it's the first place that was attacked and we were within 12 hours at war with Japan. I think a lot of men lost their lives, a lot of women lost their lives, and I want to try and help be a part of remembering them and remembering all the pilots who flew in World War II. So the aviation is very special to me, the Aviation Museum, and I'm hoping that you'll do everything you can to please be generous and help to keep the memory of our greatest generation alive. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure to introduce Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum board member and iHeartMedia Hawaii president, Chuck Cotton, and his wife, Sherry. Chuck and Sherry are this year's chairpersons for our annual For Love of Country Gala. Their ongoing spirit and passionate support of our mission ensures that our museum, along with many other nonprofit organizations serving our community, have a voice. Our thanks to iHeartMedia and to Chuck and Sherry for their leadership and support.
Thanks, Alyssa. Sherry and I are thrilled to be co-chairs of this year's gala and to support the mission of the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum. Throughout the history of Hawaii, music has been a potent ingredient in the Hawaiian way of life and a special focus of our annual gala. To honor that tradition and to pay tribute to our veterans, throughout this hour, we will feature entertainers local to Hawaii, singers whom we hope will engage you personally with the impact of their words and music. I am pleased to introduce a third-generation teacher and entertainer who's making a splash on the local music scene.
Aloha everybody, my name is Kala'e Camarillo. I am a Hawaiian music entertainer and I'm pleased to be here to honor our veterans.
This land is your land.
This land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me the endless skyway, and saw below me the golden valley. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled and followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. When the sun comes shining, then I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling. A voice was chanting, and the fog was lifting. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
Richard Ira Bong was born on September 24, 1920, in Superior, Wisconsin, and grew up on a farm about 20 miles from where he was born. Here's what the newsreel said about this World War II hero of distinction.
Major Richard Bong of Poplar, Wisconsin, who became the leading American ace with 40 combat victories. Among the first fighter pilots to arrive in Darwin, Australia in August 1942 was Lieutenant Bong, a member of the 49th Fighter Group flying P-38s. It didn't take long for him to become known in the air over the southwestern Pacific. Soon after arriving, Bong had 8 victories to his credit. And he had become leader of the 9th Fighter Squadron. As the combined American forces slowly pushed the enemy back toward the Philippines, Bong flew cover for light and heavy bombers, taking on enemy aircraft wherever he found them. With 28 confirmed combat victories, Dick Bong returned to the United States for advanced gunnery training in April 1944.
He also returned home to his girlfriend and later wife, the glamorous Marjorie Drucker. Bong not only named his P-38 Lightning for Marge, he used a giant image of her for nose art, for inspiration and luck. He even gave her a ride in the back seat of a fighter plane. Now a member of the legendary 475th Fighter Group, Bong was ready to go back to the steamy conditions of the war in the Pacific Theater.
Soon he was back in Australia as a gunnery instructor for 5th Air Force fighter pilots. By this time, the battle for Leyte was going on, and even while the naval fighting continued, work was rushed to put its airstrips back into shape to receive fighter planes. Enemy aircraft based on the west coast of Leyte raided day and night. Dick Bong was there, flying missions every day and winning more victories. The Japanese stronghold was at Ormuk Bay. 12 times they sent convoys to reinforce their garrison there, and 12 times the 5th Air Force turned them back. The last Japanese convoy to be hit was in December of 1944. By now, Dick Bong had 38 combat victories.
Bong was winning the race of aces, but a fellow pilot of the 475th Fighter Group, the brilliant Tommy Maguire, was right on his heels. Here is historic footage of the two majors talking while leaning on a P-38 propeller just weeks before Thanksgiving 1944. Maguire would end his storied career with 38 victories, 2 short of Dick Bong, which still made Maguire the second greatest American ace of all time.
On the afternoon of December 12, 1944, in front of a guard of honor consisting of 12 pilots, each of whom had 12 or more air combat victories, General Douglas MacArthur pinned the coveted Medal of Honor on Major Richard Bong. The citation read in part as follows:
"For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action, above and beyond the call of duty, in the Southwest Pacific area, from 10 October to 15 November, 1944. Though assigned to duty as gunnery instructor, and neither required nor expected to perform combat duty, Major Bong voluntarily and at his own request engaged in repeated combat missions, including unusually hazardous sorties over Balikpapan, Borneo, and in the Leyte area of the Philippines."
During the week that followed, Major Bong won 2 more victories over the enemy. They were numbers 39 and 40. After more than 2 years and hundreds of missions, Major Bong returned to the United States in January of 1945.
Dick Bong's valor and values made him a great American. His unmatched aerial combat skills made him a hero of distinction. And today, 75 years later, Dick Bong remains our ace of aces.
Since opening our doors in 2006, education has been a primary initiative. Admiral Ron Hayes, one of the museum founders and chairman emeritus, was adamant. Our mission was to educate. Today, the museum impacts the educational experiences of more than 40,000 students annually, engaging them in academic challenges that advance their science, technology, engineering, and math skills, and in explorations of historical events that teach the values and character of leadership. Understanding history, both the events and their impact help young people consider alternate solutions to conflict. Tonight, we would like to share the thoughts of students involved in our Sacrifice for Freedom initiative. Their research over several months took them on a journey of discovery, tracing the life and loss of a hometown hero who perished during World War II and is now buried at the National Cemetery of the Pacific at Punchbowl. It is overwhelming for these high school students to meet men and women from the 1940s who gave their lives in support of our country, sometimes at an age no older than the students that you will meet tonight. This lesson in sacrifice makes the horrors and devastation of war more poignant and the meaning of service more distinct. These are the voices of our next generation, the young men and women who will lead our future.
My name is Alondra Reyes, and I'm a freshman at the United States Naval Academy. The Sacrifice for Freedom in the Pacific program has been one of the greatest opportunities that I have had the privilege to be a part of. This program gave me the opportunity to research more into my hometown and the surrounding areas during World War II and the impact it had on the war itself. I followed the path of one sailor, Seaman First Class Perez, all the way from Biloxi, Mississippi, his hometown, to the Pacific Theater where he died. And I visited the island of Oahu and its amazing historical places, such as the Iolani Palace, the Honouliuli internment camp, the USS Missouri, and of course, Pearl Harbor. This program brought history off the pages to life before me. It's one thing to read about these events, but it's another to stand in the locations and sort of imagine it happening before your eyes. I was able to make amazing friendships and learn from each of them as they each had a different silent hero and understand the different perspectives on the war. This program gave me the opportunity to also understand our veterans and those who are in active duty as well, and it helped grow my respect for them and who they are and what they do every single day, putting their lives on the line for a country they love. As I stood on the deck of the USS Missouri, I understood that these were 17, 18, 19-year-old boys who had decided to put their lives on the line to protect the country they loved. And they were ready to do it without a hesitation. And because of that, I realized that this program helped me find my purpose. Going to Hawaii, I understood that in life I needed to do something bigger than myself. And thanks to one of the volunteers, Dr. Chadbourne, I decided to apply to the United States Naval Academy. And now I hope to fill the shoes of those who have gone before me fighting for our country and to do amazing things.
Learning about the early life of Grant Cook was an interesting experience for me. After I started to dig into the background of this Navy fireman, I came to realize we were not so different. Looking through yearbook photos of Cook and reading about him playing sports in newspaper articles helped me relate to him and see him as a person rather than a soldier. This assignment changed my view on my own future. Life is precious. There are no guarantees for tomorrow or the next month. Cook was trying to create a future for himself by joining the Navy, and he, like many others, could not have anticipated the tragedy that he would share with thousands of other young men. I've always had respect for our veterans. However, through this project and after much additional reading and research, after interviews and after taking time to really think about what the ultimate sacrifice is, I'm better able to appreciate what many young men and women have given up for this country and its freedoms. Prior to this opportunity to participate in this program, I looked at veterans simply as elderly men who were soldiers once. Now I understand better what they sacrificed. They were once young like me and willing to risk their lives for this country. Grant Cook was only 2 years older than I am now, and I truly am unable to imagine myself in his shoes. What I genuinely feel after completing this project is a deep sense of respect, admiration, and probably most importantly, gratitude for those who have died in order that I can live the life I am living today.
Lieutenant Lyle Asa Slocum was from Menango, North Dakota. Lieutenant Slocum was 21 when he enlisted in the United States Army Air Force and was 22 when he died. It had always been his dream to fly, but also that the carrier fleet in which Lieutenant Slocum gave his life attacking was a part of Japanese Operation MI. This is the operation that orchestrated the attack on Midway and diversion attack on the Aleutian Islands. I have always looked up into and respected veterans. Being able to research my silent hero opened my eyes to the personal things that one goes through when they go to war. People do not take into consideration what it is like to go to war and fight for your country. Everything from leaving loved ones and not knowing if you will return to the last moment some know that they will not see their family again, or that they know they're going home, but it's not the same as they were. Veterans and their families are the true heroes of our great country and should be respected and treated like such.
My silent hero's name was Private First Class Pedro Lamon Rivera. He was from Ballesteros, Cagayan, Philippines before immigrating here to Waipahu, Hawaii. He was around 37, about to turn 38 in that incoming December before he passed away. He served under the U.S. Army in the 298th Infantry Regiment, and he was buried here in Pearl Harbor just due to the fact that he didn't necessarily have someone to dictate that decision for him. The most interesting thing that I learned in regards to my hero was probably in the beginning when I was choosing which veteran to study. So I think the list had around 400 different veterans to choose from, and out of that entire list there were 2 different veterans from the Philippines, and I kind of wanted to connect myself to a person of my culture or of my ethnicity. I kind of leaned towards PFC Rivera mainly because he also immigrated to my hometown, which is Waipahu. Just the fact that he sacrificed so much to come here and he worked so hard just to better his life, it kind of reminded me of my parents and how they came here and sacrificed everything. What I learned and now my respect for veterans is more geared toward how much I learned throughout this process in regards to to the different perspectives that go into the war and how much one veteran can play such an integral part in the war of and in itself. There were 2 specific seminars that occurred throughout the trip. So there was one of the Japanese perspective and one of the Hawaiian perspective. And just the way that I was taught in the public education system was way different from how these 2 different lecturers lectured in regards to the World War. So I found that viewing these different perspectives from the different veterans of my peers and even from the Japanese, Hawaiian, American perspectives showed me that there was so much that occurred throughout the war and that it's such an integral part in history that it's essential for us to understand and learn about it and also respect our veterans in regards to how much they sacrificed for our country and what they've done for us.
All my bags are packed, I've gotta go. Find myself on some fallback road, but I know you won't be missing me when I'm gone. When I'm gone, I wanna lose myself on the mountain range, with nothing to quench my thirst but the pouring rain. But I know you won't be missing me when I'm gone. When I'm gone.
My name is Jack Detour, and I was born in Guide Rock, Nebraska, south central city on the Republican River, and it was on the 18th of August, 1923. I was in high school as a senior when the World War II started and the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I enlisted in the Army Air Corps to become a pilot. Did my pre-flight at Santa Ana, did my basic in Blythe, California, where I flew PT-22s, went to Lemoore for basic, flew BT-13s and AT-11s, and then I went to La Junta, Colorado, where I flew B-25s. in one of the first classes that they had cadets flying B-25s in advance. The B-25, I believe, was the best medium bomber that we had in the Pacific. The B-25 was great on the deck, on the waves, doing skip bombing into the ships. I was always lucky. I never had to crash land, I never had to ditch. The 38th Bomb Group was the best medium bombing group in the Pacific, bar none. The 38th Bomb Group received 4 presidential distinguished citations. No other outfit in the Pacific got 4. In the Bismarck Sea, the plan was to hit the convoy as soon as they could, which was the mission that proved the B-25 as being a good skip bomber against ships. And the B-25s were one of the primary ones to do the job. What did they do? They sank 6 destroyers. 2 destroyers or light cruisers were damaged. 11 to 14 merchant ships were sunk. They were trying to get a supply in to the Japanese forces that wanted to go over the hill from Buna to take over Port Moresby and on into Japan. And this mission that was primarily B-25s doing the job stopped them. All of the ships were stopped. The Pacific War Encyclopedia said this about the Bismarck Sea. What made the Bismarck Sea battle interesting was it pitted land-based air power against sea power and demonstrated that aircraft ruled the sea. I always felt lucky, and I was lucky. I'd get hit, but it was not really bad hit, and was able to come back with the whole crew, which I really appreciated. You don't know why. You ask yourself, why me and why them and not me and that sort of thing, but you don't get any answers, except you were lucky. And I was a lucky one. The people that were called to go to World War II came from all different families, all different states, all different backgrounds, all different nationalities. And they were put together as a war-making, with a war-making capability. And they went off to do the job. People should remember that and not be so interested in taking so much, and every now and then you got to give back. And that's what the people in World War II did. They gave back. That's the legacy as I see it.
Tony Orlando is an American singer, songwriter, producer, music executive, and actor. He is well known for the group Tony Orlando and Dawn and their 1970s hit recordings and television show. Throughout his career, Tony has dedicated himself to honoring our veterans. Here to do just that is Mr. Tony Orlando.
Hi everybody, this is Tony Orlando. I'm in New York City. I'm unable to come to this incredible historical museum, the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, which I was there in 2017 to absolutely never forget the 50th anniversary and every anniversary after that to our Vietnam vets and survivors. Pearl Harbor is America's #1 battlefield. World War II, by that attack, changed the world. We went to a tremendous war after that attack in Pearl Harbor. We lost all those great, brave men on that island. When I go there with you guys, like I was in 2017, it breaks my heart to know what went on here. And so I do everything I can to support you, Pearl Harbor, the museum, aviation museum there on the island. Just know that with every yellow ribbon, if you came to my tree, there'd be 1 million yellow ribbons on my tree for you guys. So God bless you all. I made a little demo, a song called God's Country. I hope you like it, and I hope the next time we celebrate, we can be in person together. God bless you. God bless all of our military men and women who serve. God bless our vets. And of course, God bless America. Tony Orlando here. Thank you.
Rugged mountains, deep blue seas, a land of promise, the home of liberty. From the cornfields in the valleys to the towers in the skies, America is my hometown. We're mothers and daughters, we're fathers and sons, we're sisters and brothers, we're a family of one. From the Arizona desert to the Appalachian pines, America is my hometown. When I look around at the bravest ones who keep our freedom sound, and I hear the voice of the people paying tribute to our fallen ones, our daughters and sons, America is my hometown. From New York City to East LA, people, oh people, hear me when I say, when I look across the great divide, I pray for unity. America is my hometown. When I look around at the bravest ones who keep our freedom sound, and I hear the voice of the people paying tribute to our fallen ones, our daughters and sons, rugged mountains, deep blue seas, a land of promise, the home of liberty. From the cornfields in the valleys to the towers in the skies, America is my hometown. Whoa, America is my hometown. Yes, America is my hometown.
My name is Perry Dahl, Colonel, United States Air Force, retired. I was a member of the 475th Fighter Group, and I flew 187 combat missions in World War II, flying P-38s. I shot down 9 aircraft, air-to-air battle. The 475th Fighter Group was formed in Australia in May 1943. It was the only fighter group in this theater to be completely equipped with the P-38. It was also the only fighter group during World War II to be entirely activated in its area of responsibility, the Southwest Pacific. Its members came from within the theater as well as replacements from the U.S. In April of 1943, just a month prior to the activation of the 475th, the Japanese launched a 100 aircraft strike on Port Moresby, New Guinea, on the very doorstep of Australia. The Japanese forces were steadily pressing south. To thwart their advance, it was imperative to gain, or at least localize, aerial supremacy. The only fighter available at that time with the range and capability to accomplish this mission was the P-38. For the first time, our bomber aircraft were able to strike enemy bases and shipping with fighter cover. The primary mission of a fighter group is to destroy enemy aircraft. Every individual in the 475th Fighter Group was dedicated to that mission. The pilots of the 475th Fighter Group accounted for 551 confirmed air-to-air victories and enjoyed a kill ratio of 11-to-1. The ground crews worked long into the night to get the aircraft ready for flight the next day. They performed under the most difficult conditions, with no permanent structures and limited power tools and equipment. The group flew 24,701 sorties and produced 43 fighter aces. That's pilots who registered 5 or more air-to-air victories. It was the first fighter designed to fly over 450 miles an hour. This airplane replaced the P-39 and the P-40, the best fighters in the inventory at that time. Not only did they have trouble matching the Japanese fighters, but they did not have the range required to fulfill mission requirements in the Southwest Pacific. When the P-38 came on the scene, the air battle rapidly turned around, and for the first time, the Americans were able to hold their own in air-to-air combat with the Japanese. The Zeros were much more maneuverable, but the Americans employed tactics to take advantage of the P-38's superior speed. Also, the firepower of the 4 50 caliber machine guns and one 20mm cannon firing 900 rounds a minute, that was unmatched. Having 2 engines was also a big plus. The strategy of slowing the Japanese offensive by striking their bases and shipping required long overwater flights. While engaging the enemy hundreds of miles from home plate, it was reassuring to know that if one engine was shot out or failed for any reason, the other one could bring you safely home. We went down through the overcast, but when we broke out underneath, John Loisel and myself were alone. We'd lost the rest of the squadron. And there were Zeros down there. I mean, there were, I don't know how many, 30, 40 of them. We were right in the middle of them. I looked up in that rear view mirror, and an ME-109 type, we call him a Tony, was right on my 6 o'clock, and he had me. What I did, just instinctively, chopped everything on the right side, the engine, right side, full right rudder, full right aileron, and the airplane almost cartwheel, if you will. But I lost probably about 150 knots of airspeed right now, and it kind of spun around and everything, and this guy slid underneath me, and I looked down, saw him, and he roared away, and I brought the other engine back up to speed, and we darted home. But the good Lord provided the best airplane for that theater against that particular enemy. A lot of airplanes that came out later in the war, they were superior, but none of them could have done the mission in that theater that we did with the P-38.
Aloha. I wrote this song for my daughter who went off to college, but I feel it's befitting to sing this for all the men and women serving around the world and for the veterans who've given their ultimate sacrifice. Follow your rainbow home.
Living so far from home, always proud of where you're from. You'll face the future while never forgetting the past. Please know that you can count on me to help you light your way and see that our land will be within your heart. Baby, we are all so very And if life's storms seem to come into your life, just know that if you need to, you can follow your rainbow back home. The road may take you far away, you may feel you've gone astray. There'll be times in life when it's too dark to see. The ocean may be big and blue, but it's what connects us to you. And if you listen, you'll hear your mother's call. Baby, we are all so very proud of who you are, proud of who you've become. And if life's storms seem to come into your life, just know that if you need to, you can follow your rainbow back home. And she'd say that life is short, we've got each other, and that's a blessing for sure. And if it ever becomes a doubt in your life, look up and find your colors in the sky. I promise you that time will show, love for you will always flow, no matter the curves that life may throw your way. As your inner light continues to grow, we see how far you will go. Follow your dreams and know we're on your side. Baby, we are all so very proud of who you are, proud of who you become. And if life's storms seem to come into your life, just know that if you need to, you can follow your rainbow back home. Just know that if you need to, you can follow your rainbow back home. Just know that if you need to, you can follow your rainbow home.
Hello, I'm actor John Seda. Now, I had the incredible honor of portraying Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone in HBO's miniseries The Pacific. For love of country. What does that mean? Well, I know when it came to our greatest generation, it was simple. It meant we were all one nation, indivisible, under God, come together to do whatever it takes to preserve our freedom at home and abroad. In the air, on land, or sea, the brave men and women of our armed forces stepped up to defend our way of life, to save us from tyranny. But it didn't come easy. It came at a cost. Some made it home and some didn't. Their heroic actions are the very definition of for love of country. That's why I feel it's so important to keep their legacy alive, to continue to make sure their stories are heard, that they continue to be the foundation for present and future generations to build upon. I want to commend the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum for their commitment to honoring the greatest generation. And thank you so much for having me and allowing me to be part of this beautiful tribute. And to the men and women of our great military, past, present, and future, God bless, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
Chester William Nimitz was born on February 24, 1885, in Fredericksburg, Texas. As he grew up, he never saw the sea. And yet in 1901, Chester Nimitz entered the U.S. Naval Academy. He had never seen an ocean when he journeyed east to Annapolis. Nimitz ranked 7th out of 114 midshipmen in the Academy's class of 1905. He went on to serve in submarines and ships and traveled throughout the world on a variety of naval assignments. He was promoted to commander in 1918, captain in 1927, rear admiral in 1938, and admiral in 1941. While Nimitz was rising through the ranks, Japan was building one of the world's most formidable naval and aircraft capabilities. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. To lead our Navy to victory, FDR turned to Admiral Chester Nimitz. He was designated Commander-in-Chief, Pacific Fleet and Pacific Ocean areas. From the moment he took command of the U.S. fleet in the Pacific, Nimitz aggressively confronted the Japanese Navy, first at the Battle of the Coral Sea, and then at the Battle of Midway, which changed the arc of the war in the Pacific. Carrier-based aircraft destroyed 4 Japanese carriers at the Battle of Midway, and suddenly the naval balance of power in the Pacific shifted in favor of the Allies. This was the beginning of a trend of victories that continued for virtually every future naval battle of the war in the Pacific for Nimitz. Halsey, Spruance, Turner, and his other admirals executed the Nimitz strategies masterfully as they methodically marched west to Japan. Nimitz also connected with the American people. Here's part of his radio address to the nation.
My voice comes to you across 6,000 miles of ocean before it reaches American soil. Those 6,000 miles are spanned by a bridge which you at home have built to our forces in the Pacific. It is the longest bridge ever built. It is a bridge built of money, men, food, munitions, and American ingenuity. But each link in its span is a ship. The support and success of our whole Pacific war depends on ships. You built that bridge to us out here at the same time you were supplying the power to beat Hitler 13,000 miles from here. That is an historic accomplishment. We in the Pacific are proud of you. You built the bridge of money, supply, and ships, 6,000 miles long. We must maintain that bridge, not only maintain it, but lengthen and widen it so that the ever-increasing demands for munitions and supplies can be brought to the forces who are fighting ever closer to Japan. Keep the bridge open, buy war bonds, and give us shipyard workers.
In December 1944, Nimitz was promoted to 5-star Fleet Admiral rank. As the war raged on, his aviators flew off the decks of carriers throughout the Pacific, working with land-based Army Air Forces and Marine pilots to establish air superiority as the American forces moved closer and closer to Japan. When the war in the Pacific officially ended, aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, the United States signatory to the Instrument of Surrender was Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz. He later delivered a powerful message to a joint session of Congress.
I pray that no future war may ever again find us unprepared. Most of all, I pray that such a war does not begin and end to our disadvantage before we can even begin to fight. This need not happen to us. It will not happen to us if we exercise our intelligence, our vigilance, and use our good, plain common sense and keep our fighting forces ready.
Fleet Admiral Nimitz was celebrated as a national hero. He and General Dwight D. Eisenhower rode in the New York ticker tape parade, celebrating the Allied victory as crowds packed the streets to salute the men who had done so much to win a lasting peace.
Evening, folks. I'm Admiral Zapp Latiper, the former chair and now the board member at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you were moved by the events you saw earlier tonight. This place matters. 20 years ago, I was the MC at our first fundraising dinner. 60 people got together at the Hickam Officers Club. Last year, we hosted 700 people in this historic hangar. We grew because of your support, and we need that continuing support to preserve and educate everyone about our only American battleground of World War II, Pearl Harbor. America needs you to support us. History is comprised of events in the past. We have to remember and embrace our history, then learn from it, not erase it. From our history, the history of this important site of America's lowest point during World War II, the country moved on to greater heights. Here at Pearl Harbor, we show how the American spirit can rise to overcome every obstacle if it chooses to be committed, to work hard, and to stay optimistic. As a former military leader, I marveled at the resilience of our decimated armed services and the leadership that took us from ashes, smoke, and explosions on December 7, 1941, right here in Pearl Harbor, to ultimate victory in the South Pacific in 1945. I'm sure that all of you connected in several ways to the stories that you heard earlier tonight. Please stay connected and committed to this very important historic site, not only for your own edification, but for your children, your grandchildren, and future generations of Americans. Thank you so much.
Each of us has impact on the lives of those around us. Our families, friends, acquaintances. We are mentors both purposefully and accidentally as young people identify with us and perhaps take steps to follow the pathways we have cleared. Such was the impact of James Ray, a young steel worker on assignment in Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. James Ray was standing 400 yards from the USS Arizona, witnessing the devastation and the heroism of that day. His story, like so many of our greatest generation, led to immediate enlistment in service, where he actually flew B-17s, like this aircraft behind me. His goal was to protect our nation and the world from tyranny.
James Ray believed the self-discipline and self-confidence he learned during flight training helped him achieve success in life and business. He felt strongly that these traits and taking responsibility for one's own actions are learned skills and important character qualities that can make one free to pursue their dreams. During World War II, James served as a B-17 command pilot with the 8th Air Force 447th Bomb Group based in Rattleston, England. He achieved the rank of Major, and for his service was awarded the Air Medal and Distinguished Flying Cross. After his service, aviation remained an ever-present part of his life. He flew Cessna Citation jets for almost 30 years. James was one of the most prolific aviation philanthropists of our time. The success of the people and institutions he supported was a great source of pride for James Ray and will continue through the work of the James C. Ray Foundation.
Those who knew James Ray will tell you that he lived his life fearlessly and on his own terms. Throughout his lifetime, he remained committed to inspiring young people, to help them achieve their fullest potential and to live their lives guided by the values that make this country great. Though he is no longer with us, the impact of Mr. Ray continues through his foundation. 2 years ago, the Ray Foundation helped us raise critical funding needed to restore the World War II Link trainer facility located on our grounds and to establish an aviation learning center for young people. Today, I am pleased to share that the Ray Foundation will match every dollar raised at this gala, up to $500,000, to help us overcome the devastating impact of the COVID pandemic, which has kept our museum closed for more than 8 months. Please help us get this done. As I said before, this place matters, and we really need your help.
We hope tonight's program has touched your heart and fostered memories, maybe of loved ones, family members themselves who experienced World War II personally. in the service of their country or supporting our nation at home, or maybe even something as simple as growing up in households or communities that withstood the challenges of wartime. Their unity of purpose, their resilience, their fortitude made the difference then, and their legacy makes the difference today. Now, before we close, please join me in thanking some of the many supporters who made tonight possible. It's fitting that our evening comes to a close honoring our branches of service. If you're a veteran, please stand with us together as your anthem is sung. We salute you.